We were talking right before the interview. So self-published a book in 2008 and then traditionally published a book in 2019. I really would love to go. I mean, you can go either way you want, but
Yeah.
why big gap. And then the second one is like your big business book. So why did you decide to write that book? And how did you see it kind of fit in with your personal goals, your business goals, all that stuff?
Yeah. So, when I published my first book, which was self-published way back in the day, it actually came out of the fact that when I was training to become a life coach, one of the online classes I took at the time, and by the way, this is like way back in 2002, 2003, was all about how to use an ebook to market your coaching practice. And so I had written this ebook and it was terrible. I mean, it was the best that I could do, but it was filled with exclamation points and hot pink. And I did it all on Microsoft Word at that time. And, no one had heard of PDFs, but I started selling it. And I remember I was still bartending, waiting tables to make ends meet, living in New York City. And I remember coming home from a bar shift one night and someone had bought my book online. And I think I was selling it for like $29.95. And I would just, maybe come away from the bar with like $100 in tips. And I was like, wait, I made like $30. This incredible human in Spain just downloaded my book. Now they're going to get these ideas. Like it was that mind-blowing moment.
Yeah.
And so once the ebook started selling, I was like, you know what? I love books. So I want it to be in physical form. So I did all the research. I didn't feel like, I didn't have a platform and I knew what that was at that time. And I didn't feel like going to a traditional publisher was like the right move for me. So I researched everything. I found a printer. I hired a book coach. I hired an editor, a designer, and saved up my money. And I think I had like an initial print run of maybe like 10,000 copies and just started selling them on Amazon. My parents helped me like pack them up. Like it was this whole thing. And then after that sold for a little while, I actually got approached by a publisher. It was McGraw-Hill. And they said, hey, you've actually been selling pretty well on your own. Like, do you want us to take this over? So when I sold it to them, this is when, and this gets to the answer to your question, why there was such a big gap. It was my first interaction with a big house and they changed my subtitle. There was like a bunch of stuff that I did not have control over anymore. The artwork, all of these different things. And for me as an individual, creativity is everything to me. And I have a very strong vision about everything. I'm extremely opinionated and I want my work to come out in the way I want it to come out. And while I was super grateful to get that deal, to have it taken over by a publisher, I think it wound up being translated into 16 languages, which was amazing. I found myself really frustrated with the process of someone else telling me who my market is, how this is going to look and feel, and how it's going to go down. So to be really candid, that was the reason why I didn't want to write another book for a while. Because I'm like, I have Marie TV. I've got, my podcast, I've got B School, I've got the Copy Cure, I've got all these other ways that I love changing people's lives. But then I think it was probably around 2015, I started getting the itch again. So it's like, I think I got the itch. I think I need to do it. I wound up getting invited onto Oprah's stage. She was doing a big event called Super Soul Sunday, and her and her team asked me to speak at that. And I had this idea for the book, and I said, you know what? I'm going to base this 18-minute TED style talk around this idea, and that's going to kind of be my way to test drive whether or not there is the kind of feedback, and I get the kind of feeling like, yes, this needs to be the book. So in 2016, I did that talk. In 2017, then I went back and did, okay, I'm going to go out again to traditional publishers because I really wanted to get as wide of an audience as possible. My team was already filled up. I knew what self-publishing was, and I just wanted to have a much different experience. I'm also at a different part of my career. So that was a little bit of the why. I don't know if I answered all of your questions, but that kind of paints the context for the beginning and then this most recent one.
Yeah. And then did you just feel like, hey, this concept resonated and I've got a lot that I can say, therefore like, hey, let's go and do this.
Yes. And it was really an experience too, for me. Everything is figure outable. So it's this book, right? It's the core philosophy of my entire existence. And when I thought about it, I said, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, what's the one thing that I wish I would have communicated, shared, and developed to such a full degree that, if I'm off to my next cosmic adventure, I could be like, I did it. Great. I shared all I had to say. And that notion of everything is figure outable for me was like this, such a sacred idea in my heart. And once I did that Oprah talk and I felt it in my bones and I saw the reaction, I was like, yes, there's so
Mm.
much that I have to say about this. And so I felt really excited to pour all of that into a traditional book.
That makes sense. And so did you see this as something with this topic and with this book? Did you see this as something that's like, hey, this is a fun side thing? Did you see this as something that's like, okay, this is core to my business and like, I'm going to actually integrate it into like, where was it kind
Yeah,
of in the mix of all that?
it's a great question. So, two things. Didn't necessarily see it as a side thing, but it wasn't, like we all know. And by the way, this is not a bad thing at all. I think this is very smart and strategic. There's a lot of times when folks write books and they're almost like lead generators, right? And so there's really a strategic map to their customer journey. Like you buy the book, then you sign up for this thing, then you maybe become a larger client, or it's just an entire ecosystem that's built. And as someone who loves marketing, I've been doing online marketing for over 20 years, I get that model very clearly. But this book didn't feel like that to me. For
Mm.
me, it was part of the larger brand. It was part of the larger ecosystem. It wasn't just a side thing, but I didn't build out an entire funnel. It was literally what I said about, what, life is short. Don't know how long I'm going to be here. This feels like the underlying ethos and philosophy that if you're going to work with me on any level in any program that I offer, if you don't get this piece, you're probably not going to have success. So while it wasn't as strategic or neatly
Mm.
embedded into a particular funnel, it is top of funnel because if someone doesn't resonate with this idea, they shouldn't be anywhere near the rest of our brand. Does that make sense?
Mm. Oh, that makes sense. So you feel like it's almost like the ethos of like within all this stuff. So it's not a how to like, okay, this is not a B school book or a
It's not. It's
certain
not how to
program
start a
that then goes
business.
to that. Yeah.
Correct. It's not about copywriting. It's not about like, my first book, which was, and it's a sassy title, right? And it's probably not even quote unquote, acceptable anymore. But back in the day, it was great. It was like How to Make Every Man Want You was the name of the book. It was a dating book for women. And the subtitle was How to Be So Damn Irresistible You'll Barely Keep from Dating Yourself. So
I love that
it fun, cheeky,
Yeah.
right? But that's solving a specific problem. But even then, it was a little bit of a Trojan horse book because it on the surface, it was about dating and relationships, but it was really
Mm.
about being present. And it was about unwiring some of the limiting and negative beliefs that all of us can just absorb about ourselves and relationships and expectations and the kind of challenges that I went through. And then when I was exposed to this whole other body of knowledge about presence, it was like it shifted everything for me. And I wanted to share
Mm.
that. But I knew if I called it, How to Be Present, no one would buy that book.
Yeah.
And so, to get back to what your comment was, with everything is figure outable, as a coach for me, if someone doesn't believe that they have the power within them to transform or transcend any challenge that they face, then I'm not going to be a great coach for them. I'm not going to
Mm.
be any
Yeah.
value to them.
Yeah.
And even if someone buys the book and they never work for me, I wanted to pack this book with so much value that they could use it as a how-to manual for unlocking their own potential.
Mm. That's great. And I love that you mentioned the Trojan horse concept. And I call it as a kind of funny sounding, but chocolate covered broccoli. Like
Yes,
tell them what they want, give them what they need. And
100%.
and I think that's an important message for anyone listening or watching is if you have a topic that's, like let's say back pain, for instance, right? You could write a book on posture because that's what they really need to do to fix their back pain, or you could write a book on how to fix your back pain. And
Correct.
pain pills versus vitamins, pain sells. And I think you did it. I love that concept with that book.
Oh, it's the same thing. I mean, and we talk about this, I kind of drill this in B school all the time. It's like as experts, as someone who has any kind of expertise, you're coming from such a beautiful place. It's coming from a place of like, oh, but I want to help. And this is really what they need. And there's like, nope, you got to meet people exactly where they're at, stand shoulder to shoulder with them. And then also recognize too, and this was like a great lesson for me, just one more example. I remember when I first got my puppy Kuma, this is like over 12 years ago. I think it was the vet was like, hey, you should really take this flea stuff, and prevent him from getting, I'm like, he's not going to get fleas. Right. And I remember like 3 or 4 months later, we were at the beach. He was around a bunch of other dogs and he got fleas. And I spent so much money fixing that problem. Once you are in a space of pain, I was like, I need the flea shampoo. I need the flea comb. I need the flea prevention. I need all this. And I was on every website and they could have sold me the world to kind of eliminate this problem. But when I was in the stage of like not having the pain, wasn't willing to buy the prevention.
Yeah, that's so great. How'd you resist the urge? And maybe this is down the way a bit, but to not just write the B School book. Like, I mean, like in some ways that would be, it's expected. It's directly correlated with the business. I'm sure you had publishers knocking on your door about that. And just like that topic. Like, how'd you resist the urge to do that and do this book instead?
So, the funny thing about that is that I'm like, but I've said it all in B School. Like, it's like, and I don't feel that I could have, at least at that time. I was like, well, wait a minute. Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I going to actually say in this book that's going to be different than the program? And in the program, there's the benefit of mentor coaches and all these examples and fun sheets. And I just felt like, then it would just be maybe a sales, but it wasn't clear, to be honest, to me. And the other piece of it, which is even more important, I just didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. It was like, I pour so much and have poured so much and love it into B School when we do it. But it was like, that's not the whole of me, right? That's not the whole of the business. That's not the whole of what we offer. And I found that after we published Everything is Figure Outable in 2019, we saw a huge influx in business. And I didn't have to necessarily talk about business and Everything is Figure Outable. I mean, there's stories in there that are related to business because that's a huge part of my life. But it didn't have to be that tightly correlated for there to be a noticeable increase in the overall business growth.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so how did you balance, you got somewhere between core to your business and side project, and it wasn't really on either one of those directly. So it's kind of in the middle. How'd you balance running the business while also getting the book done and kind of like,
oh my God, I struggled. I was on the struggle bus for so long. So I am really an effective person, and not by nature because I work so hard because I made so many mistakes. I had to get this way. And when I got the book deal and we were all, my entire team, everybody knew like, okay, she's got to focus on the book. And it was so hard because, the business doesn't stop and our show wasn't going to stop and all the other things I was doing didn't stop. So the thing that helped me, and again, I got here through a lot of pain and a lot of tears and a lot of feeling like a failure, was I had to wake up every day at about 5 a.m. and devote like 2 to 4 hours every single morning to writing the book, then take a little bit of a break, work out, do whatever, and then be on with the rest of my day. I also had to be even more restrictive about what I was saying yes to. So I'm pretty good at saying no. Again, got there over time, didn't come naturally to me, but it's just the thing that has to be done now in order for me to have any sort of peace. And when I was writing the book, it was just like, nope. Like I told my friends, a lot of my family was like, hey, you're probably not going to see me for a little bit. It's not because I don't love you. It's because I'm in this stage of creation and like a creation cave, and it's not going to last forever. It's a very limited amount of time, but that's what this is. And that was the only thing that helped me get through it.
And I feel that I just came out the other side of that with my most recent book, and it's so different. And then you have it because you got the business, and like you said, it doesn't go away, and there's problems and there's fires and there's all that. But then almost in a weird way, I don't know if you ever felt this way, is by saying to the whole team, like, hey, I'm going to go write the book. You feel kind of like this pressure of like, I've got to go do this. Like I've got to go do this on my own now,
Yeah. So then that's really interesting because that experience happened to me in the beginning part of it. And then what really made a transformative difference to me was, so I have a writing and a content team, and my senior editor, who I'm so close with, and she's the one who, like, she gets me. She used to be a customer. It's like, she's just been here for a long time. And I brought her in once I had the manuscript, kind of like the initial draft done. And then she started editing the book with me. Then it got fun, because she was able to also play liaison. Like, you know, she was spending a few hours with me on this a day, and she would kind of be able to parse out to the rest of the team, like, oh, here's where it's at, here's where it's going. So I also didn't feel so alone. I'm a hugely collaborative person, and the actual getting down of the book, I find so difficult. Like, I don't know how your experience is writing.
Yeah. Oh, very similar.
There's like, I think I have maybe one friend or two friends who are like, oh, I just channel my books, and I want to like I want to shake them. I'm like, who are you? Like, get out of here. I mean, I love them, and God bless. That's incredible. It's like, it's something I wish I had. I do not have that talent right now. Maybe I'll be able to develop it, but it is hard. I find, you know, I write all of my emails, I write sales copy, I write all my programs. You know, my team helps in terms of editing and helping me shape and adding and whatever, all that, but I'm the one who lays everything down. And I found it so disheartening that when I sat down to write my book, it was like, I've never written before in my life. Never. Even though I wrote a book in, 2008, and I write emails and content all day long, somehow, I don't know if it's psychological. Have you experienced this? It's just
definitely
different.
Yeah.
Right.
And then you get in your head, because then you get the draft and you read the draft and you're like, oh, this sucks. I suck. Why am I even doing this? Why did I think this is a good idea?
Totally.
Start spiraling. And you're like, all right, I gotta get with it. And then, but then you couple that with, I told the team this is going to be done by this date. That date's approaching. I feel like I'm on this island doing this. And then it's just like this whole, it's a weird thing. And in some ways, I feel like it was easier writing the first or one or two books, because there's no expectations. There's no big team. There's like, hey, so how's the book? There's no like people, because when you're like, you said, when you go into that afternoon and you did business in the afternoon, which I love that schedule, you know, naturally we were like, hey, how's the book going? And then you feel that, and then you're channeling that. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, I think for me, one of the best things was with my team in particular, they didn't really ask that many questions, which was great, because, they had so many other things they needed to talk to me about, and they just kind of trusted. They're like, yeah, she'll produce it. Like, she'll get it done somehow. Yeah. And Hi, Marie. I'm working on writing a book which will fill a serious void in the market. However, I find myself spending my days doing more immediate things: social networking, answering emails, taking on new clients, etc. The half-finished book keeps getting pushed to the back burner, even though I know it's the thing that's going to have the biggest impact on my career and be the most helpful for my audience. Any suggestions for putting the other stuff aside and getting the book done without losing momentum with my audience in the process? Great question, Crystal. Very, very important one. And I know millions of people are in your situation right now. In fact, I was talking to a young lady this morning, someone here, hello, who completely relates to this question. Here's what I mean. Most people have a book either in their head, or it's half finished, or it's done and it's sitting in a drawer collecting dust. So we're gonna handle this once and for all right now. Here are 3 easy strategies to help you get that sucker done without losing any momentum in your business. Strategy number 1, schedule it, girl. You may have heard me say this before, and I will say it again. If it's not scheduled, it's not real. You need to schedule clear writing chunks in your calendar and treat it like a meeting where you don't answer emails or take any phone calls. You also need to be super hardcore about eliminating any distractions that could interrupt your writing time. So quit out of any applications that ding or beep, like Skype and TweetDeck and Facebook and like that. Now, if I were you, I would work on writing first thing in the morning. This way, the rest of your workday is free to be with your clients and also continue building your audience. Strategy number 2 is to use a site called 750words.com. This site is awesome because it's a free online tool that helps you continue writing without stopping each and every day. You can even set it up to send you email reminders, which is awesome to guilt you into finishing your book. Number 3 is my favorite strategy of all. You need to pony up and pay somebody. Here's what I mean. If you find it hard to discipline yourself, you may need to actually outsource your discipline. Here's what I did. When I was in the middle of writing Make Every Man Want You, I was also teaching about 5 hip-hop classes a week, I was choreographing fitness DVDs, and I was also keeping my coaching practice going. So I had a lot going on, so I can completely relate to what you're going through. I knew that the only way I was gonna actually get the book done was to hire a book coach. I needed someone whose only job was to ride my ass every single week to get her chapters, to review things that I was working on, and to make sure that the thing actually got done. Trust me, if you're serious about getting your book done, it's the most powerful and fastest way to ensure it actually happens. Before we wrap this up, I want to share a great quote with you from Mr. David Campbell, who is the founder of Saks Fifth Avenue. By the way, it's a tweetable. Discipline is remembering what you want. Ooh, doesn't that one get you in the gut? Got me in the gut. Did it get you in the gut?
Yes.
Yes. If you find yourself distracted or checking email or doing client work when you should be writing, ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now getting me any closer to getting what I really want? If not, you better stop and get back on track. My biggest challenge is trying to create structure around the time I have outside my day job to move forward on my personal projects and side hustles. I hear about everything from morning routines to evening routines, but after all that, plus my day job, it seems like I won't have any hours left to actually get to work. Then when I think about all these things, I get overwhelmed and I don't work on anything. How can I develop positive habits to move along with my projects within the finite hours of my workday? Thanks so much, Vanessa. Oh, Vanessa. I love this question. You are so not alone in feeling overstretched and overcommitted and overwhelmed. And as someone who has been in a similar position, working a day job and trying to get my own side hustle off the ground, I can relate. Now, the good news here is that I'm not going to give you even more habits that you need to adopt, because all that would have you do is feel more overburdened and overstretched. What I am going to do instead, however, is give you a simple mantra and full-on permission to start doing less so you can achieve more. Here's what I mean. For the foreseeable future, the mantra I want you to live by is this: simplify to amplify. That's right. Say it again with me. Simplify to amplify. Then you need to do whatever you need to do to remember it. Write it on a Post-it note. Make it a screensaver on your iPhone. Get it tattooed on your hootie-hoo. I don't care how you do it, but the point is, simply, you must simplify, Vanessa, meaning reduce the number of projects and expectations and obligations that you have so you can amplify, meaning get more results in the limited time you have. And here's how. Step number 1. First, you need to forget about the overly complex morning routines and evening routines. Now look, I know I'm going to get burned at the stake for this one. But look, sometimes we in the personal development world, we can take things a little bit too far. You know, a few years ago, I started to get hives anytime I heard about another hack and how to use this productivity hack or that health hack or this biohack or that burrito hack. I gotta say, I wanted to stick a hack and fork in my eye. And I will say I'm starting to feel the same way about this obsession with these elaborate morning routines and evening routines. I mean, yes, of course, we all want to take good care of ourselves. And yes, I do believe in meditating daily. I mean, all you need is 10 minutes. And yes, of course, it is smart to maintain healthy habits like working out. And by the way, if you love your morning routine and your evening routine and it's working for you, please keep going. I mean, rock on with your bad self. But honestly, if I see another headline with 635 things every successful person does before 5:30 a.m., I am going to stick another hack and fork in my eye. I mean, you guys, am I right?
Yes!
I'm telling you, because you know, it's like people want you to spend an hour meditating and then a half hour journaling and then an hour working out and then another hour on your gratitudes, and then you need to go forage for acai berries, and then you need to put them in a bowl that you threw yourself on the pottery wheel, and then you need to do a coconut pull. And then before you know it, hey guys, just finished my morning routine. Who's ready to crush the day? Hey, what are you guys watching?
It's the What the Hell Are You Doing Up So Late Tonight show with special guests, pajamas, the moon, vampires, and a teddy bear.
Sponsored by your morning routine that took all damn day. No room for side hustle. Promotional considerations.
Come on. Here is the real deal, my friend. When I first started, I was like you. I was working my day job and I was working my side hustle too. And I got to tell you, I did not have a morning routine. I did not have an evening routine. My only routine was this. It was working my damn ass off in every nook and cranny of time that I could find when I was not at my day job. It was messy. It was chaotic. And guess what? It all turned out just fine. But here is one smart thing I did do, and I want you to consider it as well. Step number 2, only work on one concrete project or goal at a time. You know, Vanessa, the thing that caught my attention in your question was that you said personal projects and my side hustles, plural. And so that leads me to think that you might be trying to do way too many things at the same time. Like, I don't know, put 3,000 photographs into 5 handmade scrapbooks and learn how to speak Mandarin and start a gluten-free bakery and be a fashion blogger. Less is more, my friend. You know, most people make the mistake of having too many projects on their plate at one time. And the result, nothing ever really gets done. You see, when your time is limited and you scatter it across multiple projects, everything tends to take longer and you rarely get the satisfaction or the momentum that comes when you're able to say, done. I gotta say, I am with Confucius on this one. The man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither. So I need you to decide right now, what is the one project that you want to focus on? Is it your side hustle? Is it your personal life? Keep it simple and achievable. And then, once you have that clear focus, figure out what's the one task that you need to do today to get that one project moving or to keep it moving in the right direction. And then all you need to do is just set yourself a simple timer, like 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 90 minutes. I mean, whatever you can put aside. And during that time, you work on one discrete task and then you're done. And then any free time you can find, you keep moving that one project ahead until it is complete. And then, and only then, can you start on the next stage of that project. I want you to remember this. Simplify to amplify, baby. Now let's land this plane on a tweetable. Simplicity and focus keep a side hustle from becoming a push-to-side hustle. Talking about what really matters, tell us the story of you going to your annual direct sales convention. I thought that was kind of brilliant, and this goes into the theme of really being rooted in knowing what matters to you. And it's going to be different for me, for you, for everyone.
It's so important. So I was at this annual convention that I had been going to every year since I was 18. So it was kind of like a family reunion in a way. And I remember this feeling so distinctly. My husband and I had worked in our business. We had grown it. It had been a beautiful year. And yet and our life was like awesome. You know, it was really working. And I would say I was really happy. And yet I sat there during this awards ceremony, like with the people crossing the stage and the highlighting the success, which was beautiful. I was thrilled for them. But I had this internal feeling of like, I should have done more. Like, what's wrong with me? I'm a failure. I should be up there. Like I should, whatever. And every single year I would walk away from that conference feeling like I kind of sucked and like I should have done more. And then I got really clear on like, wait a second, if I were to take the 30,000 foot view and look at my life and look at my business, I'm freaking proud of what I'm doing. And it just turns out that like for the people who were doing that and focused on it, that was what mattered to them this year. But if I'm really clear, being a top earner in my direct selling company is it's not close to the top of the list of things that matter to me. And I actually am doing a beautiful job lining up my time with the things that matter to me. And for 3 days of the year, I'm letting myself feel like I suck. Yes. And actually like a hangover of a couple months. And so I stopped doing that. And it has felt so much better ever since.
I think that's so important. Most of us forget how influenceable we are by our environment. We're built that way as social creatures, and we don't realize that depending on the environment we put ourselves in, that we almost walk away with a little bit of like a sickness or a smell that's in relation to where we were, that all of a sudden we leave and we see our life in a context where like, I'm terrible. I'm not doing enough. I'm not ambitious enough. I'm not popular enough. I'm not rich enough. I'm not successful enough. And it's bullshit. It's bullshit on a stick, toasted, dipped in butter. Throw it out. It's terrible. Right?
It is terrible. And I think it's so important to realize that like our ability to stay grounded in our choices and conscious in our choices, like that's why I love the Do Less philosophy, because it's asking yourselves these questions so you can truly own your choices. And I could show up at that conference and be like, I chose this year to focus on other things, and I'm really proud of it. And then that sort of inoculates you from getting the icky vibe.
Yes. I also loved in the reminder, so much of this is really about the 80-20 principle. For anyone in our audience who's unfamiliar, will you please give us a rundown of the 80-20 rule, and then we can talk about how important it is to know your vital few.
Yes. So the 80-20 rule is Pareto's principle, as you know. It says that 80% of your results will be caused by 20% of your actions. Also, 20% of your sales, 20% of your people, your customers will give you 80% of your sales, etc. You can put it on a lot of areas of your life and business. And so what's really critical, and this is why I think that we made the same revenue, even though we cut our time in half when I was pregnant and that first year of parenthood, because I got instantly clear on the 20%, and those limited hours that I had, I just did the 20% and really largely let the rest go, and it didn't impact our results that much, really at all. I mean, so that was shocking.
You had to have a wake-up call, like, what the hell was I doing with the rest of my time?
It was a song and dance. I mean, it was just, which I love singing and dancing, but it was like,
it wasn't the joyful kind.
It was like a lot of this with, looking busy, but not actually moving forward. And there is so much of that because we are rewarded in our society for being busy. I got a message from somebody and they were like, you're rocking it. You're just like always out there hustling, always out there grinding. And I was like,
no, she ain't.
This is not a compliment.
Yeah, but I was just about to say, they don't really know you because.
No. That's true. Right. Things look however they look, right?
Yeah.
But I think that's what's so important is to hone in on that. And then here's what's key is to also allow ourselves to feel what it feels like to not be that busy. Because that's where, like, I really believe, and I didn't really write about it in the book, but this is like kind of there's always something that's next. What's next is like, I really think our busyness is a way that we numb, and it's a way that we avoid being with the space of just like who we are.
It's a way to avoid a lot of things, like intimacy.
Yes.
A lot of our emotions, connection, any challenges or problems that we might have that busyness can kind of cover up for.
Totally.
It's a big thing. What I love about the 80-20 rule, and we've seen this in our business, and we try really hard to always come back to it because it's true. You can fill up these days and these weeks and these months and these years. And I think one of the gifts of getting older is you get some perspective and you look back and you can really start to see what makes the biggest difference.
Yeah.
Whether it's certain projects, certain programs, certain relationships, certain experiences, that when you start to get a little bit of that perspective, you can see really what produces the greatest results, both financially, but also emotionally, right? What gives you the most bang for the buck? So this idea of the vital few, what does that mean?
So the vital few are the things, and I got this from Darren Hardy, who's the publisher of Success Magazine. I don't want to take credit for that phrase. It's the things that you and only you can do and that you're the best at. Other people call it, like Gay Hendricks calls it your zone of genius. There's a lot of different ways to talk about it.
Yes.
And for me, I really did the analysis on my business and I saw, for me, it's creating content, but it's also connecting with people. And up until the point when I really did the analysis to say, well, I need my list of what is the 20%, I had felt really guilty for the amount of time I spent in my 20s specifically meeting people. Like I literally think I spent a decade meeting people. Yeah. And it turns out, while I was doing it because it was fun, it turns out it was incredible for my business. And I was able to let go of really a decade worth of guilt of thinking I was wasting my time because I realized that many of those relationships have led to incredible things in business, but also obviously incredible fulfillment.
Yeah.
And so just because you're enjoying the thing doesn't mean it's not a valuable use of your time. Because there's also this thing in our culture that like things have to be hard in order to be valuable.
Yes.
Right? And so sometimes your vital few actually will feel really joyful.
Yeah. Like yesterday we were shooting Marie TV episodes. I'll show you after we're off camera. Like we're all in costumes and we're doing crazy shit. And it's like, I'm like, I can't even believe this is yes, I can believe this is my life because I created it. But those are some of my most joyful times. And I've certainly had the thought, because our minds do some interesting things where it's like, this is kind of dumb, Marie. I'm like, no, it's the best thing ever. Get more wigs, more dancing. But my point is this, it's like that is part of my vital few as well. I realized when reading your book that you and I share that in terms of if I'm creating content, and that's a big bucket, or I'm connecting with you, I'm connecting with people and developing relationships, anything outside of that, I don't need to do at this point. Someone else could probably do it and do it way better. And I'm going to be more joyful. I'm going to be more loving. I'm going to be able to contribute better if I stay in my little zone of genius.
Yeah, and your ideas will be better. Right?
Yes.
When we do that, our work becomes richer. So if you're listening and you're struggling with like, well, what is my thing? You know, like I'm not, you know, I don't feel like I found my thing. What I found is the less I did, like the less busy I was, the more powerful my work became. And I felt less like I was pretending, like playing business, and I felt more like, oh, this is real.
Yeah. I have a question for you, and I know this is a big one.
Okay.
And it's impossible that we'll be able to get into all the nitty-gritty, but you do talk about this in your work, specifically in this book. What can we do to clear our calendars of activities that are boring, stressful, or just not the best use of our time?
Yes, that is a big question.
It's a big
how,
one.
how do we get rid of the stuff we don't want to do? I'll give you two practical suggestions. The first, and I know you know this, being very careful when you say yes to things.
Yes.
And it is so hard to say no. And I find with people that the further something is in the future, the more we are saying yes because it feels like we're assigning it to a completely different person.
Yes.
It will never be February.
I'm sure you've probably had that. No one recently, but it's like there's some times where there's a thing where you have to get on a plane or show up and you're like, oh, that's going to be fine. And then the time comes, you're like,
why did I agree to this?
Yes. I have so many friends who have this syndrome all the time.
Yeah. Well, you know, you think it'll never be February, or somehow you'll be a different person in February. Like you'll have more time. You'll be more patient with the world.
The future you always seems to have an open calendar.
Future you has nothing going on. So future you could totally do this, except it's not true. I mean, future you will be exactly the same as you are now.
Yes.
We don't really change as much as we sometimes hope we will. So, you know, the better question always to ask yourself when you are asked to do something in the future is, would you do it tomorrow?
Would you do it tomorrow?
And if you would, like if you know, you're probably booked solid tomorrow, but if you're thinking, yeah, I could try to move this around and cancel these things because I really want to do this.
Yes.
Then you will feel the same way in February.
I like that.
But if no.
No. One of my favorite things to teach folks that work with me is I tell them to get on the no train.
Yeah.
They get a first class ticket on the no train, because some of us are so habituated to just people pleasing and saying yes, or looking at opportunities like they're the only ones we're ever going to get. And we just say yes to things. And like what you said happens, the calendar gets filled up with shit. You're like, I don't care about this. And all of my other priorities just can't fit in. So I like that. What was the second?
The second one is, I usually plan my weeks on Friday afternoons. I find this is a really good time for it. Not a whole lot else going on Friday afternoons, kind of drifting into the weekend at that point. But I'm willing to think about what future me should be doing the next week and figure out my priorities for the week. But while you're doing that, take a look at what is already on your calendar for the next week and start triaging it. Like, you know, you can figure out at that point, well, is there anything that just really doesn't actually need to happen? Or anything that I think probably won't happen, but like nobody's going to make that call. Like if that's the case, go ahead and cancel it. You know, you do it ahead of time. Everyone can make other plans. Maybe you see on your calendar that somebody's asked for 60 minutes for a meeting and it's like something you think could happen in a 5-minute phone call, like Friday afternoon, make that phone call, right? Get it done. And then that hour is opened up in the next week. Or maybe it's, you know, delegating something that someone on your team could go handle this matter. Or there's 3 of you on the same team going to the same meeting. Like, please just send one of you. And you could free up hours and minutes by doing this.
I love this. I especially love just taking the time, especially on Friday, because most people are. You're kind of taxed from the week. There's a lot going on. You are thinking about the weekend, and it doesn't have to take that long, right? You can just take 5-10 minutes.
5 minutes and you get hours back. I mean, that's about the best investment you can make.
Absolutely.
Is procrastination standing in your way? You know, the root cause could be a lack of clarity. If that sounds like you, I've got something to help. My free audio coaching program called How to Get Anything You Want will teach you how to have the clarity and the confidence to go for your dreams. You can go grab it right now. It's free at marieforleo.com/subscribe. That's marieforleo.com/subscribe. Go grab it and I'll see you there.
Let's talk now about our last conversation. One of the things I thought was so fun, because you and I feel like we're like OGs when it comes to the internet. We've been around it for a long time. We've been working online for a long time. I know Design Sponge started in 2004, and it's just, we've seen so many evolutions, and it feels like 2 years since our last conversation. One of the things that you shared with me that I was so grateful for your transparency, because we'll have a lot of folks in our audience who are like, I just want to start a blog. And I love that, and I admire that, and I'm always excited for people to express their creativity. And if they want to start aiming it into a business, it starts to become another conversation about what is the revenue model, and, how is this really going to become self-sustaining? And you were sharing that at that time in 2014, advertising revenues, you were seeing a downward trend, both for your own business and also just in terms of the entire landscape of friends and people that you know. I'm curious where you see things now, whether it is in terms of advertising or other kind of trends in digital marketing from your point of view.
It's funny. Things have completely changed again just in the last 2 years, which is just so it's difficult to process, because just as you get your footing, there's a new expectation or a sort of new shift in the ad market that favors something that you had just sort of unlearned or have to relearn. So for us, I think we've seen the same trend progress, which is scary but exciting. I think in general, blog traffic to just your home-based blog, it continues to kind of slowly shift to other places. And we see our social traffic increasing very quickly, which is exciting, but that's not where we sell most of our ads. So it's a challenge. It's really scary to sort of have our audience grow in these really interesting places, and they're very different audiences. And each, our Instagram community is very different from the commenters on the site, and the same thing with Twitter and Facebook. And so you have these communities of people, and you want to engage them, but you have an ad market that keeps saying, well, unless you put an actual product in your post, we're not going to pay you. And that's the challenge we're facing right now, because as a brand, we really want to be careful about how often we kind of just put products in people's faces.
Absolutely.
And that I don't have an answer for that. I wish I did. I wish I knew the correct way to do that and the right amount of that to put in. So it's been kind of trial and error for us to see what feels real, which feels like too much for our readers, and what feels like just enough. So we're testing it out. And then I think, like always, I like having outside projects going, because I think if the internet's taught me anything in the last 2 years, it's that you just cannot put all your eggs in one basket. And definitely not the blog basket. It's got to be another basket. So whether it's, podcasting or books or event series, all these things, to kind of have all these irons in the fire, whether or not they all work out, it doesn't really matter. It's kind of about constantly stretching and seeing which of these things sort of resonate.
I think there is too. There's a place where we can go, right? And we see this in our own business as well. It's like I'm watching stuff start to whittle and die in certain areas, and I'm watching other things start to grow. And really requires a sense of courage to try new things. And it's such an iterative process. And sometimes I find myself slightly frustrated when I feel like, this is the formula you need to follow. I'm like, dude, there is no friggin' formula.
No.
Shit changes way too fast. It's going to continue changing and evolving. And especially when it comes to digital marketing, every single platform has so many layers of complexity and there's so much detail. Like something like, well, how do you put up a Facebook ad? And I'm like, dude, Facebook ads, the level of targeting, the level of remarketing, you could have a whole department just for that.
Absolutely.
And so I'm curious if you have had conversations with folks who are just wanting to start their own business and have an online component, and how you have either advised them or anything that you've told them about this world is very different than when you and I started, and it was a lot simpler.
Absolutely. It's funny. I used to tell people, like, find your voice, find out what makes your voice different and things like that. And at this point, I feel like that advice doesn't really apply in the same way anymore. I feel like now I'm encouraging people to find what they have fun doing. Because for me, what separates a great podcast or a great YouTube show or a great anything from the other competition is somebody who you can tell is enjoying what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think so many people are sort of coming up in this era of new sort of platforms, whether it's social or a website, and they come out as these fully formed brands right away, which is great if that's natural to who you are. But I think sometimes I want to see, like, where's the spontaneity? Where's the moment where maybe it didn't go exactly as planned, but it's still really fun? And I look for those moments of just sort of, I don't know, like relatability. Is that a word? I look for those moments.
Yeah.
And sweet.
It's a word, at least to me. I got it. Yeah.
And so I look for those moments. And I think that a lot of times when you're new, no one wants to look like an amateur, but I actually love that. Yes. I want someone that feels fresh and different and new and isn't perfectly shiny all of a sudden. Yes. I want to watch them evolve, and I love that evolution. So I think rather than spending all of this time trying to get the perfect logo, the perfect launch to your channel or whatever it is, figure out what's fun to you and do more of that, because no matter how much you love your job, that old expression of if you love your job, you'll never work a day in your life.
It's bullshit.
Exactly.
Totally.
There will be days where you have to pay bills and taxes and do...
You want to stick a fork in your eye. I have so many days. I mean, not literally, but you know, like everyone... I want to pull all of my hair out, like one by one.
It's too pretty.
Yeah, no. And yes, it's real. I know. You have no, that's like one of our running jokes. It's like, something like, Marie, your extensions look so good today. I'm like,
no.
It's mine.
I saw it coming together. It's real. It is real.
But yeah, no, I think back to the kind of core question, it is, I think also, it's natural for people to want things to look polished and to have them look so professional out of the gate. But what we really crave is that genuine connection to a human.
Well, if you look at the types of videos that take off and like viral videos, they're always real people. They're real people doing something that's funny, that's relatable, and it doesn't mean you have to be a comedian or like accidentally trip over things all the time. Whatever that thing is that you enjoy doing, just film it without limits. Just think about it, record it, write it, whatever it is, and put it out there and have fun with it. Because the longer standing something becomes, you get involved in the aspects of your business that aren't as fun.
Yes.
And so the more of it that you can do up front that's just enjoyable, that's where great ideas come from. I find that very little creativity and sort of idea building comes from the planning stage of something. It's just not where you kind of let your brain roam and have great ideas. So the more you can really kind of just have fun with it and learn and make mistakes, that's where magic happens.
We were talking off camera, like I was saying, we shot the day before, and I was having a particularly stressful couple weeks that were rough, just a variety of issues, like any business owner, they can all start to stack up. And, it was time we're writing Marie TV. And I was just at that point where I felt like I couldn't write anymore. So the dumbest, silliest jokes were coming out, which we shot yesterday. I was like, oh my God, we haven't had this much fun doing these many silly things with like medieval costumes and people wrapped in like crazy stuff. It was one of the best days we've had in a long while. And it all came from not trying to do anything too perfectly, like throwing it on the page and then letting it go.
And those will be the moments that people respond to the most strongly. And I find that I do my best writing when I do have some strong emotion, whether it's anger or sadness or fear or just wanting to laugh and share something that's funny. Those are the moments that maybe you're not going to sell the most ads on that post, but those are the moments that will keep your readers coming back. And I think every business needs to kind of let those moments shine through, because that's when your customer, your client, or your reader really gets to know you a little bit better.
Yes.
And that's what we're all here for, is we want to support people's businesses, but I want to know the people and the stories behind those businesses too.
I have work that pays my bills, and then there's all this other work I want to do that never seems to get done. When my clients need me, I drop everything to get that work done because it's my job, but then everything else suffers. For example, I have a blog, but I'm not consistent. I want to write a novel and I want to volunteer, but at the end of the day, I never have enough energy to get to the things that I dream about. Every night when I go to bed, I always think, tomorrow will be the day that I start blank, but it never happens. Any ideas to help? Thanks, Angela. Angela, you are so not alone. Millions of people have a secret or not so secret, unlived creative life that feels just out of their grasp. Now, the good news here is that you can break this pattern and make all of your dreams come true. So there's a lot to say on this topic, but today I want to focus on one simple strategy that will crack this whole thing wide open for you. And I think my friend Stephen Pressfield said it best when he said, I'm keenly aware of the principle of priority, which states, A, you must know the difference between what's urgent and what's important, and B, you must do what's important first. What's important is the work. This is the whole damn thing, Ange. This is the thing that so many people miss, and it kills them. So many things in life can feel urgent, but they're not. So a few examples: checking email, answering calls or texts, even from clients, and social media. Urgent things demand our attention now, and they can get really addictive because we all want to feel wanted. Now, many of us also like a little hit of drama and adrenaline, which email and social and text and things like that happily deliver. And finally, things that are urgent often relate to other people's goals, not our own. But important things are different. Important things are quiet. There's no alarms, there's no drama. Important things often relate to our own goals and dreams, not other people. And unfortunately, it requires us to be self-starters, and important things are often easy to blow off.
Hey Marie, are we still hanging out today, or?
She's busy. Sorry.
Okay, I'll hit you up tomorrow, see where you're at.
We'll see. We'll see about that. Yeah. We have stuff to do. The first order of business, let's check Twitter. Cool, right? Yeah.
Now, Angela, I know you got clients to attend to and work that pays the bills, and sometimes, yes, that is urgent. However, you do have enough time to create your art and reach your goals as long as you work on what's important first and save what's urgent for a little bit later. Here's how to do this now. Before you get going each day, I want you to take a look at your to-do list, and you're going to mark each task with either an I or a U. I is for important and U is for urgent. And then work on all the I stuff first and save the U stuff till later. Now you got to remember, the urgent stuff is always going to get done because it has to, but this method ensures that your important tasks don't fall to the wayside. And unless somebody is seriously hurt or your house is on fire, if something urgent tries to take your attention, ignore it until your important work is done for the day.
I want to go to the power of finishing. Because you said something, another genius gem from Big Magic, about, I don't want it to be perfect. I want it to be finished.
Yes.
And that is another one of those things where I'll hear from folks, it's like there's, 15 half-created bridges, things that are just half done, and it tortures them, and they're afraid to start something new because they haven't really developed the habit of getting something out there, even if it's not totally perfect.
Man, this is a huge one. This is a really huge one for women because it's all rooted in perfectionism, which is, of course, the murderer of all good things. Perfectionism is it's a serial killer that just goes around killing joy, spontaneity, wonder, grace, humility. It just kills it all. And perfectionism, I think, is a particularly dangerous kind of fear. I always call perfectionism fear in high-heeled shoes because it's fancy. It's like a really fancy haute couture version of fear because perfectionism can advertise itself as a virtue, and it can trick you into letting it think that it makes you special.
Yes.
Because
you
people
have such high standards.
Yeah, I have such high standards. I'm like, I just can't rest till something. I'm a perfectionist. It's what people say in job interviews as their fault.
Yeah.
Like, well, I guess I just care too much, And
you're like,
and you're like, wow, you're telling me. But what you're telling me when you say that is that it's going to be very hard for you not only to finish something, but probably to begin something. Because the true perfectionist won't even start because they know already that it's not going to be the thing that they're dreaming of. And their tastes and their standards are so high. There's this woman I recently was talking to who wrote a very successful book maybe 15 or 20 years ago and hasn't been able to write another book since. And I was talking to her about it, and she said, the world's just so full of crap work, and I just don't want to put another piece of crap on the crap pile. So I just won't release this thing until I feel like it's perfect. And I said to her, I am so glad I never took that on as my problem, that the world is full of garbage. Like, how is that your responsibility? This is not your problem. And I was like, it's not my problem if my work isn't good. It's not my problem. It's not even my fault. Like, it's not my problem. My problem, the contract that I made, the only way I finished my first novel, because it wasn't good, because I'd never written a novel before. So why would it be good? Who wakes up and knows how to write a novel? So I was 50 pages into this thing, and I'm 25 years old, and it's not good, and it's not, I know what a good novel is, and it's not. This isn't working. And, every dignified part of me wants to just put it in the bottom of the drawer and walk away. And then I just had this warrior moment. And I just remember exactly where I was standing. And I stood up and I said out loud, I never promised the universe I would be a good writer. I just promised the universe I would be a writer. That is the only thing I committed to. This is not my problem. And I just sort of said to like the fairies and the genies, I was like, if you guys want it to be good, you're going to have to chip something in here because this is what I can do. If you want to add something, feel anytime, feel free. And the other commitment I made was I do not want to go to my grave with 50 pages of an unfinished novel in a drawer. There's enough of that in the world, And the other thing was this voice where I was anticipating the criticism because I knew what the criticism would be because I knew where it wasn't good. And I just said out loud to all my future critics at that moment, I don't know what kind of language I can use on your show.
Every kind of language. We're from Jersey, girl.
If you don't like it, go write your own fucking book. And you know what? You won't. Guess what? You won't. You won't. And guess what? I did, and therefore I won.
Yes.
Because mine's finished, and yours doesn't even exist, and now you're criticizing mine. This is like an imaginary conversation, by the way, with people who've never heard of me.
Yeah.
But that's how I got through that first book, was just like, I just want it done, because as my mother always taught me, done is better than good. The world's full of a bunch of really, really good, not done stuff.
Yes.
And if you can just finish something, you're already like 10 miles ahead of everybody else, because most people won't. And what will make you finish it is not discipline, but self-forgiveness. Because we all start our project on day one with the same level of excitement. And on day two, we all look at what we wrote on day one and we all hate ourselves because what we wrote on day one or did on day one, whatever our creativity is, it's horrible.
Horrible.
And the people who go on day three and pick it up again and start over are not the most disciplined. It's not rigor that's going to get you there. It's saying, all right, then, I'm not Hemingway. I'm just going to do what I can. And you forgive yourself for disappointing yourself. And you go and you do more. And that's it. It's just like a little bit of humanity towards your poor self.
Yeah. I'll tell you, that's the thing I need to remind myself of the most because I have this thing in me. I can go into that driving place. And again, that's why I love your book so much. How do you deal with procrastination? So this is from someone who writes in. She writes, how do you avoid procrastination and get a sense of urgency in the good sense so that you take action now? Okay, so I actually have a two-part answer to this question. And the first thing that I want to talk about is the overarching reason why all of us fight this nasty thing called procrastination. And I learned about this first from an author who I so admire. His name is Steven Pressfield, and he wrote an amazing book called The War of Art. If you haven't gotten it, you should get it. We'll do a book review on that sometime soon. Anyway, Steven talks about this idea called the lizard brain. So this lizard brain, all it's concerned about is survival, and the lizard brain wants to keep you hidden. It wants to keep you safe. So it really stops us from doing things, from putting ourselves out there that could be scary, and it just basically makes us procrastinate. Now, the thing that you have to do is just feel that fear, feel that resistance that actually Steven Pressfield talks about that is attributed to the lizard brain, and just keep going anyway. Another favorite author of mine, his name is Seth Godin. If you haven't heard of him, definitely check him out. And he says all we need to do is ship. We need to ship our things constantly. So what does that mean? That means write your blog. That means produce your music. That means create your videos. You have to create some momentum so you can kind of push past that lizard brain and get your things going and get it out there. There's no secret recipe, unfortunately. There's no secret sauce to moving past it, besides one of my favorite things to do is called just do it. Just do it. So I'll talk to you about what I do when it comes to getting over procrastination, and that's this. Tip number one, this is what I do, and it's called social accountability. So what does that mean? It means that I like to embarrass myself past procrastination. So I tell everybody and their sister about what I'm gonna do so that they can publicly, socially hold me accountable. So this way, if I tell my girlfriend, I'm gonna shoot these new videos and you're gonna see them next week, if she doesn't see them, she's gonna call me out on it and I'm gonna be pretty embarrassed. So I like to use that social accountability to get me to move past procrastination and get some shit done. The second thing that I do is I schedule it. So I often like to say, if you don't schedule it, it's not real. And a very wise friend of mine mine, and her name is Michelle Vargas. She was saying, if you don't want to schedule it, you probably don't want to do it. And I think that that's a very good kind of inside tip for yourself, because if you're not willing to put it on the calendar, you're probably not willing to do it. So that's all I got for you when it comes to procrastination. Again, it's a nasty thing that all of us deal with, but if you pay attention to your lizard brain, I guarantee if you know it's there, you can overcome it. And then if you're anything like me, you can put some public declarations out there, get the things in your calendar, and you can move past it. In this world, especially with technology, which I think can be such an asset, and then sometimes it can be a hindrance, I hear so many people struggling with what to focus on. They have so many choices, from what foods to buy, from what to do with their businesses and their careers, and what to watch and what to read. And I know for you, you really have to choose your focus. There's so many things that you could put your camera on, and even within the frame of what you want to shoot, there's so many different angles. So I'm curious if you can speak to how choosing where to focus both in your work and your life has evolved through what you do.
Well, I think it's a wonderful metaphor if you look at it from a cinematographer's point of view. You have to choose the right lens, the right f-stop, in order to tell a good story.
Yeah.
And it means you can focus on the object that's important. And a lot of times you want that background to go out of focus because it's a distraction. It's really true in life, right? We have to choose what's most important because there is a lot of distraction. So, rather than just, shooting wide open and making it be out of focus, we need to choose really what our life journey is about and our path. And it's a beautiful metaphor to kind of see the parallel between the two. I think when you find what inspires you and what your passion is, then you can find that path. And once you find your path, you'll never lose your way.
Speaking of finding what's important, I know something that we share in common is a deep love and a practice for gratitude and being grateful for our lives. And there is a quote in the beginning of one of your talks from Neil Donald Walsh, and it really speaks to what I feel like the hardest gratitude is: the struggle ends when gratitude begins. Tell us about gratitude, because I know it's so important for your work, and it's helped me in watching your films want to slow down as I'm walking down the street here in New York and everything I'm doing. Even today, I was thinking about this interview and coming here, and I particularly chose not to listen to a podcast or to do anything and to take in the beautiful scenery, even the concrete and the people around me.
Right. Well, when you're grateful and you have a lot of good things going on in your head, as you described, walking here to work for this interview, there's not a lot of room for negativity.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a really simple idea. And there's always something you can be grateful for. You have your health, the fact you were walking, the fact you've got like 5 fingers, the fact that you've got food on the table. I mean, those are the values I think you can always go to and avoid that feeling of problem solving, my to-do list, the negative energy of things that need to be fixed. I think naturally the brain goes in that direction because of its survival mode.
Absolutely.
Of always thinking like, I need to survive, I need this, I need that. But I think what we need to do is nurture the good things. When something good happens, we tend to kind of let it go in our head and out in about a moment, as opposed to nurturing it, savoring it, kind of sponging in it, right? And again, by filling your bucket with gratitude, there isn't room for the negative energy to come in. And once you change your worldview, then, things start to flow. Instead of like forcing that job opportunity to occur, if you kind of like just let back and be patient about it, the universe will probably allow, the opportunities to come into your life that you really want to have happen.
For me, gratitude is like a spiritual power tool that can instantly shift it all. Like when things are just going down the tank, if you can take that pause and recognize what is going right, it's the most powerful thing I've ever used in my life. And I was excited to talk to you about it today.
When you go into a negative spiral, you just get, it's like a vortex, you get deeper and deeper.
Yes.
It's the one thing for me that can just pull me out of it. Just be grateful for the fact you're breathing. Grateful you have children. Grateful for your health. I mean, it can just pull you out of it. And you just sort of have to stop that spiral. And it's pretty easy to get sucked into it.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you stay consistent? I always try to set some time aside for actions that'll help me get further in my career. I'll be doing great for 2 weeks. And by the third, I fall off the wagon, go on a hiatus, and have to start all over again, which is much harder to do each time. What can you suggest for staying on task without getting burned out and quitting? Lots of loves and laughs your way, Kat. Kat, this is such an important question. Most of us struggle with being more consistent in some part of our lives, and it's really worth working on because the rewards of being consistent are huge. So that being said, here are 5 secrets to help you be more consistently consistent. Number 1 is keep your eye on your why. In order to really stay connected to what you're doing over the long haul, you have to have a clear, compelling vision for what you're trying to achieve and know why you want to do it. So for example, it's a lot easier to keep saving consistently if you're saving for something important to you, like your first house or a once-in-a-lifetime trip. You know, when I think about Marie TV, this is a big commitment and we're in our 5th season, and it's not easy to keep doing this week after week. But I am committed because I'm clear on my why. This show is really the soul of my brand, and it's the primary way that I get to make a difference to as many people as possible around the world, and that's really important to me. So that's my why, and it is always in my eye. Number 2 is pick your battle. Now notice, I didn't say battles, I said battle. So I want you to pick one thing and just stick with that. The reason why is that we human beings have limited capacity when it comes to willpower and discipline. In fact, studies show that doctors recommend you do not try to do something like quit smoking and quit sugar at the same time, or you're gonna fail at both. And I tend to agree. So pick one thing, and once you really make that a habit and you win that battle, then you can add on something else. Number 3 is schedule it. The late Stephen Covey said this, and it is a major, major secret to consistency. Don't prioritize your schedule, schedule your priorities. So this subtle distinction is so important. When you're trying to make something consistent in your life, you want to really build your whole life around it rather than trying to fit it in. You know, when it comes to Marie TV, the reason that this gets done so consistently is that we schedule it and we build our entire year around it. So everybody who works on Marie TV, we have these dates for the year. They are sacred, they're non-negotiable, and this is gonna happen come hell or high water. Hey, it's Marie Forleo. You're watching Marie TV, the place to be to create a business and life you love. Today's Q&A Tuesday. Keep rolling. Number 4 is ignore your feelings. Now, this is probably the only time you're going to ever hear me say this, but when it comes to developing consistency, it's pretty darn important to ignore the voice in your head that says, "Wah, I don't feel like it." I mean, anytime you're trying to be consistent at something worthwhile, like working out or meditating or painting or whatever, it's guaranteed you're going to hear that voice. "Wah, I don't feel like it." I mean, I hear that voice all the time. There are some days, as much as I love what I do, I don't feel like going to work. I don't feel like doing much of anything. But I've trained myself to override that whole voice in my head because I know the power of consistency. Now, if you've been consistent with something for a long time, or you're just clear that whatever you're up to, you're just done with it, that is fine. You can totally pay attention to your feelings, close that chapter, and move on. However, if you're still trying to develop consistency and the deeper part of you knows you really do want to keep going, please, for the love of all things holy, ignore your feelings. You can tell them, "Bye, Felicia."
Bye, Felicia.
Number 5 is catch that wagon. So don't have an all or nothing mindset. Don't think that if you miss one day meditating or you miss one workout that you're a total failure. When it comes to falling off the wagon, that's fine, and you probably will. We all do. This is where I think you're getting tripped up, though. I think you're spending so much time beating up on yourself that you fell off the wagon, that the wagon is just leaving into the distance and you're not getting back on it. So make sure you run and catch that wagon. And if you need a little extra inspiration, remember this tweetable. Success doesn't come from what you do occasionally, it comes from what you do consistently. Hello, this is Marie. Who's this?
Hi, this is Bianca.
Hey, Bianca, welcome. You're on the Marie TV live call-in show, and you're here with myself and Gregory and Team Forleo, and we are really excited to talk with you today.
I'm very excited and shy, but very excited.
Oh, you're going to be great. So tell us what's happening and we'll do our very best to help you out.
So I recently realized that I don't feel or think that I've been setting myself realistic goals in trying to build my business, my online business. And I'm really stuck. I feel very stuck about this because I have this big vision. I have so many things that I want to do, and I know that I have to start step by step, and I'm trying to just focus on one thing. But I start to get into it, and then something happens and I fall back. And I have a really busy offline business. So I'm a holistic therapist, and I have a really busy offline business. So I don't have much time daily to spend on the online business and building it. And I feel just very stuck on how to set realistic goals. I want to have my website up in about 2.5 months' time. Mm-hmm. And I feel that's very realistic. But then when I get into the daily life of it doesn't work out.
So first of all, what you're describing is really common. So thank you so much for sharing. So honestly, I'm curious. You said it twice. You said, I get into something and then something happens. Can you be more specific with us about what the something happens actually is?
Either I get really much more busy in my offline practice. I have a class that I'm teaching that I have to prepare for. I have a visitor coming in from out of town. I'm also in the midst of training to develop my skills. So I'll have to sidetrack for training. Then I get tired. There's that aspect. I feel very, very tired all the time. I'm kind of edging towards burnout, and I'm really trying to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just want to sleep because I'm just really tired, and I have to be available for those sessions that I do offline. Like my clients are number one right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're describing a situation that many of us have found ourselves in and that many of us can relate to. So I'm going to ask a few more questions because that's how I can get a really accurate picture of the best way to support you into having a different experience so you can achieve more and feel good while you do it. So curious as to what time you're getting up in the morning and how often you are exercising or working out per week. And this is not a question designed to create negativity or judgment. It's just think about this like we want a little snapshot and an assessment.
Yeah. So I have zero exercise. I have a gym in my building.
Yeah.
Zero.
Okay.
I wake up, I start at 1 and I usually tend to finish at 10:30 p.m.
Okay.
And I go nonstop.
Yes.
Sometimes I start at 10 and then I go till 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. nonstop. And I usually get up 2 hours before I have to go. So I usually get up at 11 a.m. if I'm working at 1. And if I'm working at 10 a.m., then I'm getting up at like 8:30 a.m.
Okay.
And I'm working nonstop till evening time.
Okay, great. So this is the place that we need to look because it's not necessarily about being able to set realistic goals, but I think it's actually taking a further step back and setting yourself up for success, starting with how you're designing your day, what time you're getting up, some of the first things that you're doing during the day, and making sure that you're scheduling yourself so you're not jam-packed. Because I know for any of us humans, right, we're not built like computers. You can't see this, but I'm holding up my laptop right now. Computers are made to run nonstop, right? We can turn them on, we can hammer away all day with not taking a break, and pretty much they're going to keep running day after day because they're a machine. But we humans are built differently. And if we don't architect our day in the right way, if we don't build in rest, exercise, hydration, give ourselves free open space, white space, just to dream or to think or to play, we are going to put ourselves in that position where burnout is a real thing. And then it's going to put us so far back that it's going to take 10 times more to even just get back to base zero, nevertheless reaching our biggest dreams. So I know this may not be the answer that you are thinking of, but I want to encourage you to take a look at, rather than designing realistic goals, is how can you design the most inspiring schedule for your day and your week so that you're optimizing who you are and what you can contribute to this world. And I'll tell you something, Bianca. I am someone who believes in a philosophy called simplify to amplify, that less is more. It's been one of the secrets that's allowed me over the last 2 decades to continue to not only achieve things that are really important to me in my business, but to expand and grow in what I'm capable of taking on, and to do so in a way where I'm not burnt out, where I'm not getting sick. I'm going to knock on wood right now just because I'm a little superstitious and that's what I like to do. But it's actually been several years since I've been sick. And I've done more in these years than I've ever done possible. I'm probably in one of the best shapes of my life. I feel really good. Now, by the way, I'm not saying all this to say, hey, look how great I am, because I've also put myself into places where there's burnout, where I've gotten sick, where I felt like crap, where my relationships were on the line. So I've been on both sides of this equation. And I can tell you that one of the biggest differences that I made that allowed me to create the results that I'm really proud of is designing my day with intention. And being really, really clear about when I'm going to bed and when I'm waking up. I'll give you an example. Just last night, my stepson came over. We were all having dinner. It was a really beautiful time. And somebody said, hey, why don't we have some wine? And I knew that today was a day for filming to me. I knew that I wanted to wake up at about 5 o'clock in the morning and start writing and doing other things that I had to do. Other folks had wine. I did not. I made sure I got to bed by 10 p.m. so that when I woke up this morning, right, I was a little tired, but I actually felt great. And I was able to do everything I wanted to do. So my recommendation for you is to take a step back, to look at your calendar and to start designing an ideal day, week, and month, and scale back. We want you to do less so you can accomplish more. And I guarantee most of us have little pockets of places. I certainly always look for them. They're almost like weeds that grow up in our calendar, like whether it's looking at technology or there's just certain habits that we have. I can say that one for you right now is just not moving your body. And I know I'm just reminding you of something that you already know, but I think all of us need reminders from time to time to get back into the practice of what we know is going to be best for us. That when you move your body, you don't even have to work out for a full hour. It could be 20 minutes every day. It can be some yoga. It can be some things that you're doing on an app from your phone. It could be walking around the block and getting fresh air. But that movement energizes you. It helps your mind be able to focus more clearly and more succinctly on whatever you're doing, so you actually accomplish more in less time. I've seen this happen in my own career time and time again. I'm going to pause right now, and I want to see if Gregory wants to add anything, because he's nodding up and down.
Well, yeah, because I'm in the same spot, you know what I mean? And I feel like one thing that you said, architect our day.
Yes.
Like, I think that's personally going to help me as well, because it'll keep me on track, and those little other nuances that pop up, I can almost sort them into my next day or the following day if I stay focused. And then I'm also thinking, like, just Bianca personally too, asking for help is such a huge thing that I don't do. And I'm like, well, it's my dream, it's my business, it's my goals, it's my day. But other people can help us achieve those as well.
Yeah.
And one of the greatest lessons I've learned recently, even here on Marie TV, I've personally gone through some things that I needed to ask for help in delegating some tasks so that the job got done.
Yeah.
That might be something to look at as well, is just saying, I might need a little help.
Think about it like if you were building your dream house, right? And you had this beautiful piece of property and you had the ability to build whatever was going to be the home of your dreams. You wouldn't do it haphazardly. You wouldn't just go in and start slapping some wood around. First, you would architect it. You would design it on paper. And once you designed it on paper, you would have much more likely of a chance to have that dream house built than if you didn't. And we could do the same things with our days, with our weeks, with our months, and cumulatively, that adds up to our lives. So I don't know if any of this is resonating for you. Let me know. But I know it's completely possible for you, Bianca, to turn this ship around.
Yes, it's resonating with me for sure. I just still feel overwhelmed by it. But yeah, looking at it from the point of view of how inspiring schedule for the day.
Yes. And just know that you're your most important asset in your life.
meaning you're the most important asset that you're bringing to your therapy sessions and to your clients. You're the most important asset that you're bringing to your mission in this world, which is to help people heal. So to take that first part of the day and devote it to taking care of you, again, through movement and exercise. If meditation is something that you're into, or maybe you're into prayer or journaling, I know that for me, meditation has been incredible because my brain is very, very active and it helps me clear the slate for the day and stay really, really focused. And then also reviewing what I actually have to get done. So looking at my journal, looking at exactly what needs to happen today so that I don't get taken off track by the things that can pop in my inbox, or, if someone texts or there's a fire that has to go out, I know precisely what I need to get done in order to feel successful for the day. And by the way, that's not 25 things. That's usually like 2 or 3. And I know anything beyond that is a bonus.
Yeah.
So one last thing that I'll share with you, you need to stop being so hard on yourself. You're such a beautiful human being. You're working so very hard. And I can tell you this, that the path to not only getting more done, but to enjoying this beautiful adventure we have called life is to be kind to you. That really is the secret that allows everything else to unfold. It's going to permeate your relationship with your clients. It's going to inspire you to do higher level work. And you're going to have this feeling of being burnt out and constantly chasing your dreams. That's just going to start to melt away. There's no race, my love. I know we live in a culture that kind of pushes us to hustle 24/7 and to never take a break. But you know this in your heart. It's not a sustainable model. And the only one that can make the changes that are necessary to have you have this experience of life is you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm very honored to be on the Call-In Show. So honored to speak to you.
Well, please do us a favor. Will you keep us posted? I'd love you to take some time today and just start to map out what would it look like for you to have a day where you feel energized, where you took care of you first. What time would you wake up in the morning? What time would you go to sleep? What are the kind of activities that you would put into that day? And where can you start to scale back? Where can you find those pockets of time to leave some open space? Where can you say no to something that you might be cramming in because you know what? Having a full night's rest or taking 20 minutes to meditate is actually going to help you achieve more with less stress. So take some time today to do that, and then most importantly, you're going to have to implement. But I'd love you to keep us posted and let us know how it goes. I can promise you, just a week's worth of working out in the morning, even for 20 minutes, can change your whole mindset, your whole energy level, and how you approach each and every day.
Oh my goodness, that was so fun. Now, if you loved this episode, you're going to love this next one even more because it goes even deeper. So enough talking, click, watch now, and I'll see you there.
I'm good at saying, I have this much time and there will be a thing when I'm done. Most people hesitate to do that because they're afraid.